Tuesday. Happy Tuesday here in Washington, D.C. You don't happen to know where we're broadcasting from. Fox 5 Newsroom here in D.C. Tracking your weather for today, which was a rainy and wet start. Needed rain here in Washington. But since then, we've really started to see some clearing around the region. We're pushing a cold front through kind of as we speak. You happen to be watching, again, locally here in D.C., things are really going to start clearing out. We're going to be in for a pretty daggone good afternoon here, especially early. I mean, there's a live look back outside at the Capitol. You see the flags blowing in the wind. Yeah, it's going to be windy today as we're about to change air masses from what was a warmish, or what is a warm day out there right now, back to what's more typical of a seasonal January pattern. Let's hit the weather maps here, and we'll show you what's going on dynamically. Here, we showed this map yesterday. Same little system we've been dealing with here yesterday. In fact, there's all my writing from yesterday. Erase it, start fresh. Big upper level low right there. You see that spin in the atmosphere? See how there's that spin right there? That's your big upper level low. Surface low up here. Cold front kind of trails down. Let me take two. Cold front kind of trails right in like that. It's almost sitting right on top of us and then back like that. You notice your moisture stream. There it is. See, still connected. Moisture coming all the way up here. It's wonderful in my opinion. It's fun to check and see just how the atmosphere is working together to give us rain here. It's not moist. It is a little bit of Gulf moisture. You see all the fingers coming off the Gulf there, but the main stream of moisture is coming all the way from the central Pacific Ocean and coming right up the front there. I always think that's something pretty cool to see. All this yellow you see there is dry air starting to work in, and that's why we're losing the rain here. Notice in Washington, you're getting rid of the blues and the greens, and you're changing them over to yellows. That means we're drying things out here, and we should, once again, start to be in for a pretty good afternoon. This is from the Goes East satellite. This is on the DuPage meteorology website. These are what we call mesoscale floaters, which are these super high resolution cameras that they just put out on the new Goes 16 satellite when they put it up. I believe it was last year or the year before. Anyway, it's focused on us today, and you can just see every little cloud structure out there. There's your cold front. Can you find it? I mean, it's clearly kind of marked right there with the clouds. I mean, Tucker and I can just sit there and watch these things all day. Nice sharp cutoff there with a little bit of rain coming down through Baltimore, Prince George's County, up through Anne Arundel County. Sharp, quick burst of heavy rain as the front comes through. And then look at literally right behind it. All that dark you see up there, that's clearing. That's clear skies here. Some clouds mixing in every now and then, but there's some clear skies developing not too far behind the sky. Even back here, what this is it's like you see the streamer there, streamer there, streamer there. That's warm air hitting the hills, and it's kind of doing that and bouncing up and down. So you're starting to get these roll streamers going. But there's no rain coming out of that. Now your convective stuff and where they're getting some thunderstorms is off to the east today. Delaware, Maryland, the Delmarva essentially is where they're getting thunderstorms today. So cool to see, and yeah, sunshine on the way. And again, as I showed you in the Capitol, sunshine's peeking through a little bit. There's the radar look of it all. Zoom in real quick here on DC. Again, right now there's a little bit of showers, northwest suburbs or northeastern suburbs, but other than that, it's looking pretty good here in DC. Baltimore's getting a little more, but it's all heading off to the east pretty quick. There's some leftover scattered showers out to the west, but I don't think those are going to make it here into DC. I think we're pretty much in the clear for the rest of the day as soon as we get through this particular batch of showers, which is right along the cold front that's coming through as we speak. Now, even though the cold front is coming through, it's not coming through with colder temperatures. In fact, we're going to have a nice warm afternoon here in DC. If this is correct, which, let's see, I'll go ahead and check it because I like getting the official one. Let's see if it's right, and we're actually at 66 degrees, because then we would have beat my daytime high already, which I knew we'd be mid-60s. I went 65. Yeah, there we go, 66 degrees. Reagan National right now. So we shot up nicely here last hour. We're sitting at 66, mid-60s outside D.C. Again, with the rain done, get outside and enjoy it, because look what's coming behind it. Zoom out here. There's your cold front is right here, but it's more complicated than that. Cold front not necessarily bringing the cold air in right away, because the cold front leads what is the cold air today. And the reason why, let's go back to the map. And let me zoom out here, and I'll kind of go through the details. Oop, zoomed out too far. So sometimes with these mid-latitude storms, you get the energy outriding the center of the upper level center of the storm a little bit. So the upper level center and another area low pressure is back there, but we have the energy ride out a little bit in front. So you have the surface low up here. In between is what we call an occluded front. Riding down from there is the cold front like that. And then out here you get your warm front, and you're getting sleet and ice where cold air is trying to hold in ahead of the warm front there. So cold front there, warm front there, warm sector here, but really your cold sector is what's wrapping around this low out in the back. So the cold air is still going to take its time getting here. Also the mountains, which are, I'm getting a lot of lines on here. You got the mountains right here, and since air is moving in from the west, it's going to get jammed up against the mountains for at least a little while. Eventually, kind of like, your curb on your road when it starts to flood and water's hitting the curb, it'll fill up, and eventually it'll overflow. The cold air will overflow the mountains and spill into our region. That won't happen until after sunset tonight. So I believe we have a nice afternoon to get out there and enjoy some of these warm temperatures before the cold air, which you can already see kind of being jammed up against the mountains. Although really it's back there. Remember, I'll draw it on the temperature map. Your upper low is up here, so your cold air is coming down the backside. Yeah, it's cool in here, but it's not cold. We will turn it cold as we head into the overnight hours. Here's the models for you, just to show you the cold's coming. That's today. Enjoy the 60s. Here we go into tonight. Temperatures falling, and you see the blue takes over. By tomorrow morning, not a whole lot below, well, here in town we should not make below freezing tomorrow morning, but by tomorrow night we will. There will be some of our suburbs that make below freezing, but nothing too epically cold. It's the following night. It's tomorrow night into Thursday morning that will be at our coldest, with temperatures maybe in the 20s, here in DC, and the suburbs maybe on the fringe of teens, maybe 18, 19 in a few spots. So that's generally the story here. Is get ready. We're going through another little cool down. Here's another model. Look at it. Yay! That was really old. So here we are right now, sitting at well, actually we jumped way up even above where this chart was when I grabbed it. So we jumped from here all the way up to here, and then after kind of the next couple of hours, temperatures should start to fall throughout the rest of the day. Tomorrow morning, right around here, sitting at around 40 degrees. We may go up to 46, 47 tomorrow afternoon, and then down we go. Our coldest spot here in the next few days will be Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon's not too warm. And then Friday morning's pretty cold too, probably freezing or sub-freezing in most suburbs. And then we start to warm it back up again as we get into the weekend. This is Friday afternoon near 50, Saturday afternoon above 50, and then Sunday afternoon above 50 as well. In fact, we may be near 60 on a couple of those days. All right, weather threats coming up. Let's head on through. This is today's storm. There it goes. Goodbye. Coming behind it, more seasonal January weather, some sunshine too. So no snow with this one. Unless you live in the mountains, you'll get some upslope snow showers. That's that little painting of green right there. Only for the mountaintops, not for us here in DC. No flurries expected. We do stay cold until Friday afternoon. Things start to warm back up. Of course, when that happens, basically you get high pressure off to the east here. Southern wind kicks in behind it. At the same time, energy slips into the Midwest. You start to develop another storm. There's no blocking, so the storm takes an interior track. And that's the next weather threat we have to watch out for, is Saturday into Sunday time frame. This is Sunday afternoon according to the European. If the European's right, Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening could be the next wet period here in DC. I will say the American side of things is a little faster with it, so we'll keep an eye on that. It does not look like a snow event. In fact, I can almost guarantee it won't be. It's going to be a little bit too warm, and the blocking features aren't set up right. So just keep that in mind if you have weekend plans, is that maybe on Sunday into Monday might be the next time period to watch for rain. Behind it, as we do with every storm, early next week we'll get cool again, but we'll warm it right back up. It's not sustained. There's another Great Lakes runner, nice big storm going up this way. Guess where that puts us? Put your cold front there. Warm sector, cold sector. We're on the warm side. We'll warm it up into later next week. And then after that storm goes through, things start to get a little more interesting. That's as far out as this model goes. but we'll talk about what's coming up in the future here in just a minute. I want to start with this because this created a little bit of buzz on social media last night. Was last night's run 18Z of the American model, a nice little storm system just off the coastline here, and gave us honestly a blizzard. It gave us a blizzard on February 3rd, so the day before the Super Bowl. Let's talk about why that won't happen. I always love to break down models like this. So whenever you see something on social media posted like this, first of all, the number one thing you should do is check the hours. So if the forecast hour is above 120, meh, be careful with what you see. This is forecast hour 276, which means it's pretty far out in time. Obviously, Saturday, February 3rd is still two weeks away. A little under 2 weeks away, but still, in the weather modeling world, it's out far enough that it's hard to be believable. Then, as a forecaster, what you got to do is go, all right, could this actually happen? Well, from a surface standpoint, sure. You got a high pressure here. That's a little far south, but generally speaking, you got a high there, you got a high there. What you can't see is there's another high out here. So you got three blocking highs, ridge in there. Basically, what you're saying is that any storm that forms down here cannot move into that high. It's going to get turned and go north and east. Sure, from a surface standpoint, that could happen. Problem, from an upper level standpoint, it can't. Here's the bigger picture of what's going on here. Again, harder to see, but there is an area high pressure down there. A stronger area high pressure up here. High pressure up here. High pressure down there. Nice, blocked in. You have your two kind of highs flanking the lows. That's what you want to see from a surface standpoint. Now I got to check on my blocks. Say, hey, are those highs in the right place? Because the high placement is key with the winter storm. Could there actually be a high there? Could there actually be a high there? Could there actually be a high there? Only one of these highs has any legitimacy to it, and it's this guy right here. I don't think this is right out here. I don't think that's right in here. And here's why. Let's go upper levels. Check your blocks. Number one, what's the orientation of this, or not orientation? It's like high school all over again. What's the axis of this trough here? Well, this trough is positive. That's not good for storms. Positive troughs push. So even if a storm did develop down here, it would likely get pushed out. Number two, there are 0 blocks up here. What do I want to see up there if you want to go to the East Coast blizzard? You need to get all this red here, and you got to build it up over the top. There is none of that going on. Basically, what that means is that I think that storm that's out here is eventually going to sneak itself up here because it's got room to come north. I think those high pressures are in the wrong spot. I think they're going to end up out here in the west. The high pressure out in the ocean, sure, I buy that under the ridge. That's fine. High pressure out here. Too much room in between. You'll run the storm up the Great Lakes. You'll build that ridge into the east. You'll get one more warm weekend before I think we do turn things colder more permanently going beyond. So be careful with what you see on social media when people are like, ooh, it could be a blizzard for the Super Bowl. No, don't think so. Sorry, upper levels do not support. We have 0 blocks up there. And in fact, that was last night's model run. And let me just take you to the newer run. So that was the following run. And let's see. I gotta switch. We're not out far enough on that one. This was the morning run with it. Yeah, starting to lose it a little bit. A. B. There's no more high pressure up here, so that high pressure is dead. Again, this is the latest run. And then that trough, that positive trough, is kicking the storm. So the storm is now way out here instead of out here. I still think that there's going to be a storm. I think it's going to go up there. We'll see. We've got lots of time to figure that out. I'm not worried about it being a snowstorm. Let me put it that way. I think we got to get beyond that period. Here's what's going on. There's today's storm. This is upper level atmosphere again. Remember, what we want to get cold in here and then subsequently snow is we want to see this all nice and red. That would be building a ridge out into Alaska, into northwest Canada, into western portions of the U.S., because that takes the cold that's out here and it forces it down to the east. So that's what we need to see happening. Let's rotate on through. January 25th, 26th, 27th, a big old ridge out here. Another reason why I don't think we're going to be seeing any snow. Here comes a weak little trough that comes across. That's the guy that's making the so-called blizzard. Good luck with that. I don't like it. Moving on. Another ridge behind it, another trough behind it. These little waves come through. And then after that storm on Super Bowl weekend, which I think will be a rain one here, then the cold may lock in after that. Because what you're doing is you're starting to build this ridge up nice and big, nice and big. Watch as it expands up into Alaska here as we head into the end of the period. See how nice and sustained that's getting up into Alaska, it's getting up to the Arctic, that's getting up to northwest Canada, and that is taking all this cold air, because guess where there's cold air this time of year? Lots of it in Canada. They love to share. That's going to take all the cold air up here, and it's going to dump it south, and then eventually it's going to come east. So I do think the cold is coming back. Notice your date up there. That's Wednesday the 7th. So after Super Bowl weekend at some point is when I think we're going to take the pattern, snap it back from what was a predominantly warm pattern or a back and forth pattern to more of a sustained cold pattern. Here's a look at, just charts. Anywhere you see the red is where above normal temperatures are favored by the models. Blues are below and grays are normal. So if I get rid of my picture here for a sec, you see today, well above normal, 100% of the models actually have it. Tomorrow's a normal-ish day. 90% of the models say normal. The day after, below normal, thanks to a cold start. Back to normal after that. Weekend gets warm. And then early next week, we'll have another storm go up Sunday. Storm comes up. That cools us down behind the storms, as they always do this time of year when we get rain events. We're cold for a couple days, then we warm it back up. We'll have another storm, and then we get cold again. And then it's that cold beyond, there's the 3rd, the 4th, it's that cold beyond that will start locking in, so to speak. So that's what we're kind of watching here. No need to look at the 7-day forecast. I know what it is. So that's it, guys. That's kind of the spiel for today. Rain should be just about wrapping up. Maybe a lingering shower here or two north and east of town. Other than that, enjoy the warm temperatures. They're only going to last for today. And then we will start to cool things down as we get back into the daytime hours tomorrow. All right, I'm done. That's your weather for the day. Molly's going to be coming back in a few more minutes, probably about 10, 15 more minutes with the Check Your News headline. She's going to have the latest on what's going on. Other than that, guys, I wish you a very happy Tuesday, and we will check back in on the weather situation tomorrow at 11 o'clock. All right, guys, take care. Wishing you all the best. Have a safe and happy Tuesday. Leaving you with a live look at the Capitol, by the way. Watch the clouds roll by. Very pretty.
All right, y'all, welcome to Fox 5 Live from inside the DC newsroom here. January 23rd. Happy Tuesday to everybody who's on. And if you're on with me, don't forget to say hey in the live chat, guys. Today, the 90th Academy Award nominations were released today. It was about 5:30 Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern time. We have that video, so I do want to play that out for you in case you missed the nominees. Now, I would love to get Kevin McCarthy from Inside Our Newsroom to kind of chat with me about them. Some of them a little bit surprising. Some of them he was really, really excited about, like Christopher Nolan, who was nominated for Best Director for Dunkirk. So if you're interested in movies, if you're into entertainment with it, which I know a lot of you guys are and have been in the past, we are going to play that video out for you to see. Now, if I can get him to kind of narrate along with me and talk a little more about what he thought, I will do that. But coming up is going to be that coverage of the nominees, in case you missed them. We'll bring it to you live from, or originally live in LA from this morning, pre-taped. For us, also live, I have still this Larry Nassar trial, guys. It's still ongoing in Lansing, Michigan. More than 158 or so women have come forward to talk about their experience with sexual abuse from Dr. Larry Nassar. He's there. He could face up to 40 years in prison. We're going to see what happens at the end of this, but we'll be kind of tracking this throughout the week. So that is live right now. We're going to go there in just a little bit, but I do want to play out the nominations before it gets a little bit old or stale, so you guys can see what it looked like when they announced them this morning, in case you missed them. You've probably seen the list out there. In total, there were a couple, I think, exciting moments and some surprises, at least for some people here in this newsroom, but overall, pretty exciting. 9 nominees for Best Picture, among other really awesome things coming out of that. So if you're interested in that, check it out right here. We're going to play this for you. Here are the Oscar nominations for the 90th Academy Awards, which will be March 4th. They'll be broadcast Sunday night. And let's check into it right now.
You open it, Clark.
All right.
The winner is?
And the winner is?
And the Oscar goes to?
The Oscar goes to?
And the Oscar goes to? Good morning and welcome to nominations for the 90th Academy Awards. I'm John Bailey, Governor of the Cinematographers Branch and President of the Motion Picture Academy. This has been a remarkable year for the movies. Actors, writers, producers, and directors have given us films that not only entertain, but challenge us. There's been bold, adventurous work in animation, documentaries, and foreign language films, visual effects, composers, and sound artists, production designers, editors, and cinematographers continue to raise the bar of their crafts, as do costumers, makeup, and hair artists. This is a landmark year to honor their achievements. Now please join me in welcoming our hosts, the irreverent star of Girls Trip, Tiffany Haddish, and Caesar from Planet of the Apes actor-director Andy Serkis.
Hey, good morning. It's an honor for us to be here for the announcement of the nominees of the 90th Oscars.
We're just seconds away from the first announcement. As part of this event, we're going to be showing you a few short videos to introduce some of the categories, like this one right here.
Here are the nominees for Achievement in Production Design: Beauty and the Beast, Blade Runner 2049, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, and The Shape of Water.
Do you think they can install a steam shower in my house? Because they look like I need one. Now it's time for our second category. achievement in cinematography, Blade Runner 2049, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Mudbound, and The Shape of Water.
Next are the creative geniuses who ensure that we actors dress the part and are never naked on screen. For achievement in costume design, Beauty and the Beast, Darkest Hour, Phantom Thread, The Shape of Water, and Victoria and Abdul.
Now, let's see our nominees in the next two categories. Here are the nominees for achievement in sound editing: Baby Driver, Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, The Shape of Water, and Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
And for achievement in sound mixing, Baby Driver, Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, The Shape of Water, and Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
I gotta see this Dunkirk. It seems like a lot of people like it.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars: The Last Jedi could do with a bit of a hand as well.
I know, yeah, we gotta watch both of those. Let's keep up the pace. Next video, please. For Best Animated Short Film, Dear Basketball, Garden Party, Lou, Negative Space, and Revolting Rhymes.
Guys, if you're watching with us here, I apologize that we keep getting a little bit of a stream issue and a pop-up, but we're trying to clear that up so you can see it clearly. This was from earlier this morning, coming out of Hollywood, of course, in LA. I think it was like 5:30 Pacific time, and we took it live on our morning show with a little commentary from Kevin McCarthy. You might know him, our entertainment guy. Fortunately, I can't really find him roaming around here, but I do want to show you these so you can kind of see what you think got snubbed, what you're looking forward to for this year's Academy Awards. I think I fixed the problem. This should go clearly for another few minutes here as we round out the nominations. Best Actor, Actress, Picture, of course, coming at the end. So take a look.
For original score, Dunkirk, Phantom Thread, The Shape of Water, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
And now, the next category. For achievement in visual effects, Blade Runner 2049, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Kong Skull Island, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and War for the Planet of the Apes.
Without the masters of their craft in this category, the average movie would be like 18 hours long. For achievement in film editing, Baby Driver, Dunkirk, I, Tonya, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
And now, the final category in the first half of this morning's announcements. For achievement in makeup and hairstyling, Darkest Hour, Victoria and Abdul, and Wonder. We still have more nominee announcements, but we'll be back in a moment.
A 1.5-minute break? Do we get to take a nap?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All right, guys, as you can see, lots of interesting nominations here. Some people were not surprised at all. Some people really excited, but this goes on. I'm going to actually scroll through so we can get through most of them, just so you can see sort of a sneak peek at what happened this morning. Now, you can obviously find this list online, but I wanted to show you the moment that it was revealed. So I'm going to kind of scroll through. We're going to go up about a minute to where they continue the nominations, and we'll be back with that in a second.
Allison Janney in I, Tonya. Leslie Manville in Phantom Thread. Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird. And Octavia Spencer in The Shape of Water. Yeah.
For performance by an actor in a supporting role, Willem Dafoe in The Florida Project. Woody Harrelson in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Yeah.
Richard Jenkins in The Shape of Water. Christopher Plummer in All the Money in the World. And Sam Rockwell in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Ebbing, Missouri. I said it.
For Best Foreign Language Film, A Fantastic Woman, Chile. The Insult, Lebanon. Loveless, Russia. On Body and Soul, Hungary. And The Square, Sweden.
For Best Documentary Short Subject, Edith and Eddie. Heaven is a traffic jam on the 405. Heroin. Knife skills. And traffic stop. All these titles make a woman from an urban area very uncomfortable. I'm just saying.
No, I'm totally up with it. For Best Documentary Feature, Abacus, Small Enough to Jail. Faces, Places. Icarus. Last Men in Aleppo. And Strong Island.
For original song, Mighty River from Mudbound. Mystery of Love from Call Me By Your Name. Remember Me from Coco. Stand Up for Something from Marshall. And This Is Me from The Great.
For Best Animated Film, The Boss Baby. The Breadwinner. Coco. Ferdinand. And Loving Vincent.
Here are the nominees for Adaptation Screenplay. Call Me By Your Name, James Ivory. The Disaster Artist, Scott New Standard and Michael H. Weber.
Yeah.
Weber. Logan Scott Frank and James Mangold and Michael Green. Molly's Game, Aaron Sorkin. And Mudbound, Virgil Williams and Dee Reese.
For Original Screenplay, The Big Sick, Emily V. Gordon and Kumail Nanjiani. Get Out, Jordan Peele. Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig. The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro and Vanessa Taylor. And 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Martin McDonough.
For performance by an actor in a leading role, Timothy Chalamet in Call Me By Your Name. Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread. Daniel Kaluuya.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, you know it. He know his name. And Get Out. Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour. And Denzel Washington in Roman J. Israel, Esquire.
And for performance by an actress in a leading role, Sally Hawkins in The Shape of Water. Frances McDormand in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Margot Robbie in I, Tonya. Saoirse Ronan in Lady Bird. And Meryl Streep in The Post.
Here are the nominees for Achievement in Directing. Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan. Get Out, Jordan Peele. Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig. Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson. And The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro. You want to do the big one for the best picture?
Well, I think we should both do it. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
You don't know me that well. You don't know me at all. And finally, here are the 9 films selected as Best Picture nominees. Call Me By Your Name, Peter Spears. Luca Guadagnino and Luca Guadagnino, Emilia George, and Marco Morabito. Producers.
Darkest Hour, Tim Bevan, Eric Fellner, Lisa Bruce, Anthony McCartan, and Douglas Urbanski, producers.
Dunkirk, Emma Thomas, and Christopher Nolan, producers.
Get Out, Sean McKittrick, Jason Blum, Edward H. Ham Jr., and Jordan Peele, producers.
Lady Bird, Scott Rudin, Eli Bush, and Evelyn O'Neill, producers.
Phantom Thread, Joanne Seller, Paul Thomas Anderson, Megan Ellison, and Daniel Lupi, producers.
The Post, Amy Pascal, Steven Spielberg, and Christy McCaskill-Currick, producers.
2 cents.
All right, we're going to jump in, guys, here as you're watching this clip from earlier this morning. We just saw Best Actor nominations, Best Actress, Best Picture, 9 of them, and then they're going into Adapted Screenplay and whatnot. T's here to talk a little movies with me briefly. I admit I am a little behind this year. I have lots that I'm still waiting on seeing, including 3 Billboards right here, Lady Bird. There's a lot on my list. I literally have them right now in my hand. I'm going to be watching them soon. I have them in my ready to watch them.
Have you seen Molly's Game?
I have not, but
Your
hey,
Game?
for one of you who said I should get royalties, thanks. Whenever I hear that title, I'm like, oh, that is my movie. I do want to see it, though. I love Jessica Chastain. I want to see the true historical fiction or historical story behind it.
Oh.
Guys, you've been commenting out your favorites on which ones you thought got snubbed. Keep it coming. Let me know in the comments what you think. And thanks for chatting with me. What about you, T? Any that you're waiting to see? Or?
Dunkirk. I know Kevin McCarthy was talking about how great that movie was. It was in his top 10 for 2017.
Huge all year.
I definitely want to check that one out. I'm a big fan of history films.
Yep. Which that is.
You know, like war films, stuff like that. So
Totally.
That's my main one. Yeah, that's the main one.
And then everyone is talking about Shape of Water, where the woman falls in love with the underwater CGI'd character. It's a little, it's sci-fi in nature, fantastical. I think Kevin's saying it's a big contender for Best Picture. For others as well. I think it's a must-see just to preempt the Oscars because it will probably win multiple, according to people that know their stuff about this. And I admit I'm also an entertainment movie lover, so I do follow it. I'm just a little bit behind on this year's nominations. So having seen it this morning, now I know which ones are definitely on my radar to see next. I do want to see that one.
I appreciate CGI graphics on movies because these graphics take years to make.
Yeah.
So like some of these movies were probably started filming in like 2015, 14, like 4 years ago. So I think that the hard work should be displayed.
Yeah. I wonder when they started with that one. If anybody knows, let me know. Kelleck's saying he didn't really care for Dunkirk, but lots of people love it. The score is really amazing. I think Hans Zimmer is really, really good. It's its own thing, right? It's its own kind of genre, fast-paced war. The music, the stimulation in that movie. So it's
Hans Zimmer is also like my favorite
so good.
Like musician.
Yeah, really.
This man he is masterful. He's another GOAT.
Yeah.
That is I mean, I'm not sure if he's underrated because a lot of people know about him.
Yeah, sure.
But he is a legend. Hans Zimmer, all of his music I've sampled before.
Yeah, you sampled it in your own music.
Yeah, in my own music. It's like Hans Zimmer is
it's cool.
He's just a beast.
I know that people were really excited too. If you guys caught this, Christopher Nolan is nominated for Best Director, which is exciting. First time I think ever nominated, and he's done so many amazing things people love, and so it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I didn't know this was the first time.
Yeah, that's what Kevin said this morning. I'm going to see if we can find Kevin in the newsroom to kind of talk more movies. If I can't find him, we'll move on to something else. We'll take a little break in a second here. But that's what we pretty much going on this morning, guys. That the nominations were announced. The 90th. That's so crazy. The 90th Academy Awards coming up on Sunday, March 4th. You gonna watch them, T? You into them?
I'll definitely be
check into them.
Yeah, checking in.
Red carpet.
On a few things. If Chris Nolan wins, that's gonna be big. That's gonna be epic, man. He definitely deserves it. It's like he's done
so many, and people for a long time have noted and have been fans of. And if you're out there and you love him too.
Thank you, Iran. I appreciate it a lot, man. Thank you.
Team makes good
so
music.
Much.
Aw, thanks. That's a nice comment.
Hans Zimmer is an inspiration.
Thank you guys for chatting it up and for your contributions and for your support for our digital channel. T, I think you said you had to go help somebody with some tech stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to take a little break. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
I take a little break here as we set up some more stuff, kind of looking what's going on right now. We have some stuff going on in the newsroom, but I'm going to see if I can grab Kevin if he is around. I do want to talk more movie stuff with you guys, and we'll find a live video to show you soon. I know we do have the Larry Nassar trial that we've still been following, so I might show you some of that as well that's ongoing. And thanks for being part of our channel, guys. We're here live in the DC newsroom on this Tuesday. Happy Tuesday the 23rd. Thanks for following, and we'll be back in just a moment.
and sweeping it under the
We're
rug,
seconds away from
you
the
are
first
just as
announcement.
disgusting.
As part of this event,
John, I find it funny that you tried to keep us all silent for so long, and now you're the one who is silent. We are just merely distractions to you. And I'm sorry that your beloved doctor sexually abusing me was such a distraction to you. Because it surely hasn't been a distraction at all to me for these 9 years. That's sarcasm, by the way. It has been a distraction. We found our voice, and we are calling you out. But you are nowhere to be found, hiding and hoping that you can just sneak out of this. But you can't. And we will come for you next. Your Honor, may I have the permission to address the defendant?
Absolutely. Proceed.
Finally, Larry, I think it is important for you to know that when I wanted to grow up, I wanted to be a sports medicine physician. I wanted to be like you. I even called you, asking which undergrad route I should take. So I pursued pre-med in college. When I found out and I realized what you had done to me and to hundreds of other women, I was so sickened that I couldn't stand the thought of being anything like you. I wanted to throw all I had done away, and I wanted to completely change my major. But I realized something. You were never a real doctor. You did not heal me. You only hurt me. And I hope that eventually I can bring good back into the medical community. And I pray that I can eventually earn the real trust of athletes again. So I promised myself I would continue and go to medical school and become the doctor that you never were and that you never could be. Thank you, Your Honor.
That was a very confident, brave, well-spoken speech, and I applaud you for going into the medical field because I think any one of us would be happy to be in your medical office.
Thank you.
I believe you, and I thank you so much for trusting us with your story. We all look up to you. There isn't anybody who doubts you or who doesn't look up to you, and I see how proud your sister and your boyfriend are, and this whole room you can't see, but they're all proud of you as well. You have a name. You are not a number. You have a voice, and your words are so important, and I hope now you begin the real healing because you matter. Do not self-harm. Do not do any of those negative things. You are a positive role model survivor. Please continue on this path and with that lovely voice of yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next survivor you will hear from that has submitted a statement, and we will be reading it on her behalf. Is that correct, Ms. Snyder? Okay. And she has agreed to be publicly identified. Is that correct? Okay. I have a slide for her.
They are in the courtroom as well.
Okay, but did not want to come up?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
We will next hear the statement of Megan Ashcraft.
Thank you. Please state and spell her name for the record.
It's Megan Ashcraft, MEAGHANASHCRAFT.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor, for letting me share my story. My name is Megan Ashcraft. I was a gymnast for 14 years. I met inmate Nassar when I was just 10 years old. All the coaches recommended him, saying he was the best doctor for gymnastic-related injuries. They said he had helped so many other gymnasts with similar injuries. I needed to get heel cups for an injury on my growth plate. It was a normal appointment. I saw him a few times after that, and he just treated my ankles. He made me feel safe, made me feel like I was going to be somebody one day. He was always complimenting me, always making me laugh and smile. I now know he was grooming me. Then, at 11 years old, I got injured. He treated me, but also began to give me a special treatment, saying my hips had something to do with my ankles hurting. He was a doctor. I believed him. I was so unaware of what was actually happening. I believed whatever he was doing was going to help, even though it was so uncomfortable. While my mom was present in the room, he would slide over in the roller chair to my side and ask me to lay flat. He would then position himself in such a way that my mother, though not paying much attention, was unable to see what he was doing. Sliding his ungloved hand in between my legs, saying my hips were out of line, resulting in my leg and foot pain. Again, I believed him. It was then that he began to touch me in places a little girl should never be touched. He finished up the appointment and sent me home. I never spoke of what happened that day. I saw him many times after, each time doing the same thing, telling me my hips were causing me pain, so he would do one of his special treatments. This went on for 2 years. I was so young and naive. I had no idea what this monster was doing to me. One of the last times I saw inmate Nassar was for my rib cage. I was 13 at the time. He again touched my anus and vagina repeatedly, then sliding his ungloved hand inside of me, and he pushed his fingers in and out for about 5 minutes while pressing down on my abdominal area. It made me feel so gross. He, like the other times, was telling me he was going to help my hips because my one hip seems to lock up. He wanted to help me even though I had only gone in for a popped-out rib. I didn't want to question him and what he was doing to help me. He was my doctor. I knew he had made me feel gross before, and he had made me so uncomfortable, but I didn't understand why. Who am I to question the best gymnastics doctor in the world? Who am I to question his medical treatments? For so many years after this, I was always so depressed, never wanting to be touched and hating myself. I began to self-harm and was so angry at my own body. But why? I had always been taught to trust doctors, that they will make you feel better. Well, Larry made me feel 100 times worse. He used my body for his own gain. He took advantage of me when I had no voice to speak up. And to be honest, I didn't realize the awful thing he had done to me until all this stuff started coming out. The stories about how he treated so many other girls. I realized in that moment that this predator, this pedophile, had been sexually abusing me when I was a little child. He did this to so many girls, so many innocent girls. I never wanted to actually speak about this publicly because I still feel shame when recalling the events that happened to me. How did I not realize this was sexual abuse? How did I not realize this was sexual abuse was the question I asked myself for months after hearing all of this. Why didn't I say anything about what he had been doing to me? I was clueless. I had no idea the trauma that had been happening to me. I trusted him with my body. I trusted him as a doctor. He betrayed so many people's trust. I still will not let a male doctor touch me from the waist down. As a teenager, I wouldn't even let a male doctor treat me, and I figured it was just me being a teenager, and that there was something wrong with who I was, that the problem was me. I now know it wasn't me. It was the fact a man I trusted had been assaulting me without me even realizing it. I felt it was in my heart I needed to speak out and say that I am no longer a victim of sexual abuse.
All right, guys, just to give you a little context about what you're watching here, this is from earlier this morning, footage of the Larry Nassar sentencing. So young gymnasts continue to come out about this doctor. This is obviously very serious stuff, and it's pretty graphic, so of course discretion is advised for watching this testimony with all its details. But again, day 6, more than 150 women have come forward to talk about this. And they're being quite open, so we wanted to play some of that out. This was from this morning. Again, it's in Lansing, Michigan, and this is former gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar's sentencing. Many sexual assault survivors have been able to sort of bond together and have their voice be heard, and then the judge here is offering some statements after they're giving their testimony. So the number is now 158. We're hearing from a few of them this morning. This was just a few moments ago. Remember, discretion for graphic testimony and details on this video.
You are glorious. I wish you well. Thank you for speaking today.
You know, the next survivor you will hear from is a minor, and she is present in court today with her best friend and her best friend's mother, who you will recognize, as they have both previously been before the court. She's 17. Her parents are out of the country. Her parents and I have been in contact. We have met previously. They have given permission for her friend's mother, who's also a good friend of them, to give you permission if necessary and to be questioned. We also have emails indicating the same as well, that they are comfortable with having their daughter publicly identified. But before I put her name on the record, I would ask them to come forward. They already have.
All right.
Yeah. And this is the survivor you will be hearing from. And this is Suzanne Thomashow, Dr. Suzanne Thomashow, and Jessica Thomashow. And Suzanne has permission from this survivor's mother to speak.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please state and spell your name for the record, and just move closer to the podium so you don't have to bend over.
Good morning. Thank you. Suzanne Thomashow, SUZANNE-THOMASHOW.
Thank you. And you have spoken to this beautiful woman's mother?
Yes, both her mother and father.
And they've given you permission to speak with me on her behalf?
Yes, they have, Your Honor.
And did anyone force, threaten, or coerce them as far as you know, or what they've indicated? Or did they force, threaten, or you to come here and give permission?
No, they did not.
Has anyone promised anything or paid anything for her testimony?
No, Your Honor.
And based on your conversation and what you know, you all believe that this is in her best interest that she testify publicly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That, coupled with the statements that the prosecutor has, I will allow her to speak and find that it's in her best interest. You may proceed. Come right up to the microphone. Counsel, can you just pull that microphone a little bit closer or stand it up?
Like this,
or
perhaps?
aim it. So I just want to make sure. Yes, so it's, yes, thank you. Much better.
Your Honor, this is Natalie Woodland, and she's here with her friend, Jessica Thomashow, who is our victim A in this case. And I do have a photograph of Natalie that I'd like to display.
Thank you. You want to come right up next to her? Thank you. Please state and spell your name for the record, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Natalie Woodland, NATALIEWOODLAND.
And you are 17?
16, actually.
You're 16,
Yes.
okay. You have an upcoming birthday?
In May.
Okay, so you're almost 17.
Yeah.
Okay, but you wish to proceed?
Yes.
Okay, you may. Thank you.
Thank you. I like to think of myself as an optimist. I always try to strive to see the good in people. So when these Nassar allegations headlined, I didn't want to believe that they were true. And more than that, I didn't let myself believe that it had actually happened to me. However, as I read the stories of other victims, I realized that mine is no different. Specifically, Allie Raisman's testimony detailed the same exact abuses that I was too afraid to talk to anybody about. I'm a victim of sexual abuse. That is not something that is easy to admit. And I've tried for so long to deny it, push it back to the back of my head, and forget about it. However, it is seemingly impossible for me to do that. How can you just move on from something as horrible as what happened to me and so many others? I was violated by Mr. Nassar hundreds of times between the ages of 10 and 14. The amount of physical, mental, and emotional trauma this man has forced upon me is immeasurable. What he did to me and so many others is disgusting. He took advantage of not only me as a little girl, but of my parents, friends, and many, many others just like me. I trusted him to take care of me. My parents trusted him, and he used me as a toy for his own pleasure. Larry Nassar destroyed my childhood innocence and shattered any positive experiences I had had in the gymnastics world. He ruined the way that I see the world, broke my trust, instilled a fear in me when I'm around men, and crushed any excitement I had for future relationships. Not only will he have to live with what he did to me, but I will also have to live with those facts. This is a burden that no one should have to carry, but way too many of us do. And to those people and organizations who let Mr. Nassar get away with these disgusting acts for so long, shame on you. People came to you crying out for help, and you did nothing but turn them away, threaten them, and make them feel worse about their situation than they already did, if that's even possible. This could have been prevented. You could have saved hundreds of young girls from sexual abuse and all the baggage that accompanies it. You could have saved me, but you didn't. I was treated by Nassar at MSU, and this was after the 2014 investigation. These appointments were no different than the previous ones. No new protocols were followed, and I was abused again. People need to realize that we are real humans with real rights, feelings, and emotions, and we are all affected by these despicable acts. We are important. However, the organizations opted to protect their reputation and money over our lives and well-being. You know, just 48 hours ago, I was adamant that I was not going to share here today. I've been wrestling with denying and trying to stifle everything that had happened to me for the past year, and I've decided that it's impossible to keep it to myself anymore. This past week has been the hardest of my entire life, but listening to so many other strong women speak out has inspired me to do the same. While spending much time in prayer and reflection this week, my God has shown me that I am strong, and I am beautiful, and I am bold, and that no one, especially not you, can take that away from me. I may seem like a lamb on the outside, but I'm a lion on the inside. And while standing up here, I'm finally realizing that I'm not alone, and that my story is important, and that I have a right to be heard. And I refuse to be held in bondage by what this man has done to me. Thank you.
Ma'am, you just cut the bondage of that secret, and that's so important to your healing. You are bold. You are a strong survivor of sexual abuse. You are not a victim. You are a survivor. You are incredible. I hope your words lift you as much as what I've seen, because when you came up to the podium, you were a little hunched over, and now I just see you rise. And you're rising with your sister survivors. I'm so proud that you came forward, especially at your tender age. I know, because I was once a 16-year-old girl, and I thought I was such a big adult. And I know that many teenagers feel that way. I think that's really a prevalent feeling amongst teenagers. You have said adult words, and I'm sorry that you had to go through what you did at your tender age, but you are incredible, and you have such a healthy, happy, lifelong journey ahead of you, and you've taken your power back. You are amazing, especially at 16, to stand here in front of all these people, in front of the court, and talk like that. Keep talking, stay happy. I love the smile. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Your Honor, it's my understanding the next speaker is going to be publicly identified, but I want to confirm that because that's a recent change, and she is a minor. Your Honor, this young woman is 15 years old. She's accompanied by her parents, who are here in the courtroom. This is her mother, Ann, and I'm sorry, Scott is here. So I'll let you question them as you have previously before we put her name on the record.
Thank you, Mom. Please come forward. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Put your hand down. Thank you for being here. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Anne Swinehart, ANNESWINEHART.
Thank you. And your daughter is 15 years old?
She is.
And you've discussed talking publicly about what's occurred with her. Is that correct?
We have.
And you're allowing her to go public?
Yes.
Do you believe it's in her best interest?
I do.
All right. She's nodded behind you. I think she also feels that way. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. And no one has forced, threatened, or promised you anything or paid you anything for this testimony. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. I will allow her to testify, finding it's in her best interest. Thank you for being here. All right, so I need you to first state and spell your name for the record, and I see you have a statement there. Read it like I'm a little child and you're telling me a bedtime story, okay? Slow. All right.
Jillian Swinehart, JILLIANSWINEHART.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak today. The bravery of all the women coming forward has made me also want to tell my story. I started gymnastics when I was 3 years old. I've had injuries on and off regularly since the age of 8, seeing Larry Nassar as my doctor, right up until the end of 2016 when he couldn't anymore. I was sexually abused by him hundreds of times without gloves or my consent. These actions took place at either his house or Michigan State, wearing either shorts or a leotard. He found an injury that no other doctor found, and the injury lasted longer than planned. I wonder if there is even something seriously wrong, or if he did it for himself and found something that didn't exist. Your Honor, may I address the defendant?
You may.
Dear Larry, it is hard for me to believe that someone who did so much good for me did it for all of the wrong reasons. You supported me, gave me gifts, and were there to help with my injuries whenever, pushing your own family aside. I thought you were doing it for me. I thought you were a good person. I thought I could trust you, but I was wrong. What you did to me and so many others is so wrong, and you will never be forgiven for your actions. I still struggle to believe that all of this is true, but I know it is. I hope that with many of your victims speaking out about it, you feel horrible for what you did, but I know that you don't. Someone that would do what you did could never feel bad about it. I can't even talk about what you have done to me in specifics to the people that I trust with everything in me because the thought of it makes me so uncomfortable, weird, and sick. I know that I should not feel ashamed of what happened to me because it was not my fault at all. It was yours. All of this is your fault. You have caused me and so many other girls so much pain and suffering just for your own pleasure. You have to be the most sick and twisted person ever to do that to young girls. It is hard for me to trust new people because I don't know what their motive is. I shake going into the doctor's office because you have made me lose all trust for doctors. I don't like to tell my coaches when something is hurting because that means I have to go see a doctor. You made me want to become a doctor when I was younger. I wanted to be like you. Now I want to be nothing like you, but I'm not going to let it stop me from my goals and dreams. Even though you have caused me to lose trust in doctors, you have made me want to become one even more because then I can make sure that this will not happen to anyone else. I am a victim of your trap and manipulation, but it is not going to stop me. I fell into your trap at 8 years old. I trusted you and stood up for you for so long, just like many others that you have tricked. I do not blame any of this on my coaches. They have kept my love for the sport in place even after what you have done. I blame this on you. It was your actions that caused all of this. Now it is time for you to get what you deserve. I want to thank all of the other victims for giving me the strength to come here today and tell my story. Thank you.
Ma'am, you also are strong.
All right, guys, let's take a little pause on this. I know we've been following the Nassar trial throughout the week and even last week, but right now another live event has come up. This was from earlier this morning. We'll come back to some of this video in a little bit, but right now at the Council on Foreign Relations in downtown DC, former Vice President Joe Biden is discussing an article published, co-authored between him and Michael Carpenter, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, also one of the directors at the Biden Center at UPenn. They co-authored an article called How to Stand Up to the Kremlin. It's been published in the most recent issue of Foreign Policy magazine. They're discussing that right now live in DC, so let's check into that.
Anticipating what history will grapple with. Was this inevitable? Was there something about the nature of America, America's definition of what world order consisted of, something about Russian political culture that essentially, despite the optimism 25 years ago when President Bush 41, my boss at the time, talked about a new world order. Was it inevitable, or to some extent, does Western policy bear some of the responsibility for the current state of affairs? Obviously, high on the list of certain people would be NATO enlargement. Did we have to get to where we are, or could it have been avoided?
I think it's hard to say it could have been avoided, but it's more easily able to identify why it didn't happen. And it wasn't, in my view, because of the expansion of NATO. As you may remember, that was my primary responsibility on the floor of the Senate with Michael Hutzel. And the only time I had a real serious and elongated disagreement and debate with Pat Moynihan was on the expansion of NATO. And his argument was, to vastly oversimplify, and it was much more articulate than I'm about to state, but was that this is not the time to worry the new leadership in Russia that they're about to be surrounded and overtaken, et cetera. I don't see, I ask the reverse question all the time, is what happens if we didn't have NATO? Does anybody think if NATO did not exist, the expansion of NATO did not occur, that somehow the fact that a KGB thug ended up in control of that country would have been altered? I don't see any evidence to suggest that would be the case. As a matter of fact, I would argue that you would very much likely see more use of military power and force. And one of the things we talked about, and I'll not go on any further, is that as all these Eastern and Central European countries were quote, freed, they all had their own agenda, their own historical fears, their own concerns, and they're all engaging independently in activities and actions that could have been very destabilizing to the whole region. So part of what we did was to stabilize and give some assurance to each of those countries that they should yield toward what would be more considered to be a basic democratic instincts and policies than to go the route some of them were considering going. And so I don't think that the expansion of NATO, history there'll be a debate that will continue, was the reason why the instability to the extent that it was inevitable that Russia would take the role that it took. But I do think there were a number of things when you think about it, as you've written about, and many of you have. There is.
Not going to mention the name of the book.
Well, you just made me forget the name of the book right there. But it's a very good book. I strongly urge you to buy 2 copies. But think about it. I mean, look at all the countries in the world, including in this hemisphere, that are coming out from under what has essentially been somewhere either decades, if not an entire history of corruption and dictatorships or oligarchs running those countries. And it's really, I've spent a lot of time. I mean, I've spent more time, I would argue, I've spent more time than any member of our administration trying to deal with making sure that this revolution of dignity does not blow up in the face of what is a great opportunity for Ukraine, but the corruption is so endemic and so deep and so consequential. It's really, 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 really hard to get it out of the system. So I think there were some, there were at least 100 years of history and beyond in Russia that made it difficult to actually set up these institutions in the first instance.
Michael, as you and just about everyone in this room knows, last month this administration published its first national security strategy. And among other things, it called for the United States to rethink the policies of the past 2 decades when it came to several countries, China and Russia. So let's focus on Russia, given our subject today. And it described those policies as being based on the assumption that engagement with Russia and its inclusion in international institutions and global governance would turn it into a benign actor and a trustworthy party. And the national security strategy goes on to say that this premise has turned out to be false. Do you agree with the national security strategy there?
So I don't think the premise that engagement with Russia is destined to fail, especially if one steps back and looks over the long run. Certainly what we've seen is a increasingly revanchist and aggressive Russia acting out both on its periphery in Europe, here in the United States. Looking back, I think we can also see that there were some missed opportunities. But, the goal of integrating Russia into both international economic institutions, the WTO, the IMF and the World Bank, after the fall of the collapse of the Soviet Union, but then also more sort of norms-based institutions like the Council of Europe, I think that was the right choice to make then. Obviously, and going back to your question about was this inevitable, I mean, there was a certain sort of original sin there where the ex-KGB elite, as the Vice President alluded to, sort of captured the institutions of the state in Russia. And you can't get around that. And you saw that play out, prior to the last administration. You saw it in Georgia in 2008 with the cyber attack on Estonia in 2007. And yet, there were still sort of contingent events that shaped the flow of Russia's leadership and how it responded. And one of those, by the way, was the mass protests in Russian cities in the winter of 2011-2012, where all of a sudden you had the Putin regime, which seemed so stable, had been riding these high oil prices for years, starting to look fragile. I mean, there was one event where Putin shows up at a mixed martial arts competition amongst a crowd that's basically his base, and they're jeering and booing him. And so that had a profound impact, followed up as it was on the Arab Spring, in terms of internal calculus about how to interact with the West. And we saw that the result of that ended up being confrontation. I don't think it was inevitable. I don't think that having tried to integrate Russia into those institutions was a mistake, because there's still history ahead of us, and we need to have that play out.
So even if it might have been, or either failed, or it might have been a mistake in the past, it doesn't. You're both basically saying we shouldn't give up on the possibility.
We need to look.
I don't think we can give up on the possibility. I don't think we can give up on the possibility. I don't think we should be naive about it. I think we have to do a number of things in the meantime to make it clear to Russia that they are going to pay a price for many of the things they have done, in addition to making sure that we just, in effect, advertise to the Russian population and to all of Western Europe what they're actually doing. I mean, here we are. We're talking about Russian interference in the United States here, where there was collusion between the Trump administration and Russia. That's obscured a much larger discussion that should be taking place about whether or not what Russia is doing in the rest of the world right now, and what Russia is doing in Europe right now. And part of it is just pulling the Band-Aid off. And for example, we recommend in here international commission. Immediately we got response from I got response from a number of European leaders wanting to set up an international commission, independent commission made up of all parties, the mainstream parties in Europe, to actually spend time and do what we haven't done here. Look at what Russia is doing in Europe right now that their publics do not know, because when they do know it, their influence diminishes precipitously, like it did in France in this election, like it has there. But part of this is that there is not much discussion, and our leadership has been advocating. Your point is there's 3 ways you lose power. One is just, advocate. Well, that's what we're doing. And part of it is just going out and telling, sounds almost sophomoric, tell the truth. Lay out what's happening out there and get the international community to join in terms of providing the hard data after some serious looks as to what is going on. And the second thing is, if you're sitting here and when my grandchildren are writing their senior thesis at some great university about what happened to Russia, in 2018, what was the consensus in America about what Russia was going to look like in 2030? Well, you know, I wouldn't want to have to be in a position, I often say to classes I teach, I would not want to be in a position, no matter what approach I took, of having to lead Russia. Look at the state of Russia now. They're in enormous decline. They're, by any definition, these guys are on a toboggan run. The question is when the run ends. You know, they have a second-rate military power. They have significant advantages geographically where they're engaged. They have a nuclear arsenal that can blow up the whole world. But in terms of their efficacy, their capacity is de minimis compared to ours. They're in a situation where they're an oil-based economy. You have Gazprom going from a market value of something like $350 billion to $50 billion in the last 10 years. What do you do if you are...
All right, guys, let's take a pause on good old Joe Biden, who is live at the Council on Foreign Relations here in D.C., and come back into the newsroom just for a second with Risa.
Hi, guys.
Talk a little social, trending topics, a little entertainment.
Let's do
to bring
this.
the heat up a little bit, bring the energy up in the room. What's going on this week? Not a ton of stuff.
Not a ton of stuff, but we've had a interesting social segment today, which we'll cover.
Yeah, we did.
And it kind of correlates with this Melania tweet,
It
I feel, to
does.
some degree.
Okay, this happened a couple days ago, guys. As you know, Inauguration Day last year was January 20th. So to
Can't believe it.
celebrate the 1 year, I know. And so this is, I guess you could say, a couple of days old, and it is, but we didn't get to actually talk about this on the stream. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about this tweet. I was looking at this the other day. Here's Melania Trump, FLOTUS, First Lady of the United States, tweet about her year, kind of commemorating her anniversary. She says, this year has been filled with wonderful moments. I enjoyed the people I've been lucky enough to meet throughout the country and the world. There she is, FLOTUS. Let's bring it up, double screen. Okay, but the kicker here is that she's there in her tweet with not her husband,
With not her husband, right.
a Marine, which is significant.
Absolutely.
It means something to her, to us, to America. But it was significant such that a lot of people's response on this was, is there something behind this? Is there a reason she's tweeting this with this American hero who's not her husband? It's not her sitting by her husband. You can see there she's in her powder blue dress there, or
I think it was
jacket.
Christian Dior, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Do you guys remember this? On the 20th.
It was gorgeous. It was stunning.
It was really pretty. And so this is, I mean, is this a statement, right? So what do you think? We were talking about this the other day.
Sometimes I feel like social media does a fabulous job at looking into things deeper than what it is. Personally, from looking at it, perhaps it's just her time there to, yes, everyone is spotlighting on, you know, the year anniversary of Trump's inauguration, but let's also spotlight on the men and women who give back to this country. And maybe this is all that it's meant to be. Some people, I do remember reading social media chatter, were like, oh, she definitely is staying away from the politics on this end, which is why she tweeted this picture out of all the pictures she could have put out.
It's true. It's really interesting that she did pick this one. I mean, I think there could be multiple meanings here too.
Absolutely.
I sort of see that side. You know, the question is she distancing herself from her husband?
Absolutely.
The president, maybe from what she sort of doesn't want to be pushed into as First Lady of the United States and be her own person, individualize herself.
That too.
What do you guys think? Is this a statement? I mean, this was a couple days ago again, on the 20th, 3 days ago, to commemorate the anniversary. So, kind of an interesting little talker in social media.
Absolutely, because a lot of people weighed in on that one, and they were like, oh, she's not with the president. What is happening here? And so, do you remember last year when everybody would look at her faces and they were like, it's okay, Melania, blink twice if you want to be saved, girl.
How many memes were made out of her face on that day?
Many.
A million.
Many.
Yeah,
and some of them were relatable with this, with the meme that it correlated with, and I was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, it could essentially just be what it is.
Right.
Just a picture honoring, the men
Yeah.
and women who also give back to this country. That's what she wanted to associate herself with.
It's
But
kinda
who
interesting.
knows? Only Melania knows.
And then another topic we were discussing this morning, I guess
Yeah.
this sort of goes into it, right, on our morning show?
A little bit.
This is totally kind of unrelated, but like we were just to start the social chatter,
Yes.
we were talking about the anchors were kind of having this debate
Mhm.
as to if men and women can just be friends.
Yes.
Total basic question. They ended up sort of chunking it into different things. Let's talk about single women. Let's talk about married people. Single people. I mean, I don't know. We had a lot of different thoughts around the newsroom.
Everyone had their own special thoughts on it.
Everybody wanted to push like, okay, well, if we're talking about single, if we're talking about married, no, this, that.
Yes, it got a little heated.
Yeah, it did get heated. We had people on both major sides of the issue.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I definitely have a thought on this. Do you too?
I feel like it depends.
Okay.
Every relationship that you have with a specific individual is very different. And our awesome intern Kyle made a bomb
What did he
point.
say?
So he basically said, in a relationship between, the opposite sexes, it can happen, absolutely. But there is always a time where one may feel strongly about another. And if that other feels that way, then sure, that may lead into something else. But what if they don't? The way you handle the situation is the way the relationship will basically sway. So will it go left? Will it go right? But I'm drawing on personal experience. And I can say yes and no too. It honestly depends because everybody is different.
Yeah.
You can't have a relationship, sustain it with a male, and say he develops feelings for you, and you have another friend who doesn't feel that way for you. They're completely two different people. So honestly,
It's
I
about
feel like
attraction in the end,
it just
and that's what
depends
they were
on the
saying.
relationship that you have with that specific male or that specific female.
I think you're right. And then that's such a, like you could say that's a cop-out answer because it's case by case, but it really is case by case.
Exactly.
And I was thinking about this too, and I don't know, maybe I took it too far to be like, let's talk about gender equality and that we can all be the same. But you're right, feelings are, I guess, scientifically are prone to be different in women's minds and men's minds, and I get all that can be a factor in this. To me, like the ultimate freedom is to be able to say yes.
Yes.
Absolutely, they can be. It's about
the ultimate
your
freedom. I love
maturity, your
that.
control. Gender is the same, or it should be. There shouldn't be one preying on the other. Although I'm willing to, of course, accept that in science, men act a certain way because of how they're made. I know there's things behind that, but I guess my first reaction is sort of like, yes, absolutely, yes, like the freedom of people to be able to rise above what society thinks they have to be, where they can't be friends. I mean, this comes from people that are both friends with people of every sex. So it's like, I don't know, it's interesting, but we did have some debate because we had some anchors that were totally on the other side.
Totally against it.
Absolutely
It's
not.
like black and white.
Single, married, no.
Yes.
Attraction, absolutely not. So, we have people that agree with that and people that don't, but it spurred a little bit of a conversation, and Twitter was able to kind of throw some of their thoughts in, and we kind of they read them on air.
Yeah, we also had Snapchat people with a
yeah,
slew
we
of their
snapped it.
responses. Instagram too. We've had a few people DM us. If you want to weigh in, let us
Yeah,
know.
weigh in if you
Drop
want.
a line.
I see that you're weighing in on this Trump thing.
yeah.
He's predicting a divorce after Trump is not president because he doesn't think there's any love there. It's interesting kind of being on the sideline, right, watching their relationship because we really don't know.
Absolutely.
We just sort of see what we see in the public eye on camera. Telex also saying I'm friends with more women than men. I won't lie when I say I wasn't attracted to at one point, but it settled into a friendship. I agree with that. I think that's probably happened to me as well. Possibly on the other side, right, where you just sort of get beyond those initial things and you're just so emotionally close that you are friends.
Absolutely.
I believe in that. But again, everyone's at a different level. Everyone's maybe at a different maturity level too. They feel different things. It totally is case by case.
It's case by case, guys. It
There's
depends.
no answer for this.
No, there is no concrete yes
I know.
and no. And I do recall Wisdom Martin basically saying, guys have a hidden agenda, and it's an absolutely not. And I feel like an individual responding also draws from their personal history.
True.
So personal experience, they're like, nah, you know what? I was like this, and absolutely not, because I was like this, or this person was like this, and I saw how it, went down. So
yeah, totally. That was interesting with him. It was his. You are affected by your life, your environment, what you've done, what you've seen. And we all had some anecdotes to kind of share this morning about that. But it was an interesting talk, right? It's something to think about. Going back to the Melania thing, Iran saying she would not divorce the president out of protectiveness of Barron, little 11-year-old Barron, their son.
Yes.
Very young, in the White House. She's committed to her child. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I don't know how relationships or divorce would work with that, but that's absolutely a good thought. I mean, some people keep it together for the sake of children.
Absolutely.
And that could happen.
And that's another interesting talker that Allison and Wisdom have also talked. Should you stay with your significant other
for the sake of
children? For the sake of your children. Or should you just say goodbye and lead happy lives? Because sometimes those environments do become toxic for the children. So is that something that you want to put your kids through? They had an awesome Facebook Live that I want to do some digging on. Yeah, it was just a before thing that they did, and I'm just remembering that this is something that they talked about.
That makes sense for them. They
a lot of people weighed in.
Children.
Exactly. So they touched on that heavy subject, and I feel like it also depends.
So often some of the things that we do are sort of garner some of the interesting social talkers from our morning show, which you guys I know can't see because you're in different parts of the nation, but if you are local, you can obviously tune in to Channel 5 here in the DMV. And they throw in interesting just things that are trending, maybe in news that relate to something that we can relate to in our normal lives, and then we'll take them and maybe talk about them or make them into a sort of somehow like a picture on Instagram or some type of chatter on Snapchat. So
because it's all relatable, it's all relatable, and for some people, well, for me, not exactly, but for example, friends and relationships that I've seen, from my perspective, I'm like, okay, you get a better understanding for things. So it's it's always interesting taking real life situations and getting to know what our coworkers also think, because then I also feel that's when you really find out a little bit more about people.
You really do. It's cool how we can delve into people's thoughts and the personalities really come out. But also speaking of entertainment, guys, so this morning, if you missed it, at the beginning of our stream, we showed you the nominations, came right live from LA. We took them later, we taped them, and then played them back for you guys for the Oscars, the 90th Academy Awards are March 4th. But also preceding that, did you know this Sunday are the Grammys?
No.
But do you think you're going to maybe watch some of them?
You know what? It's been a while that I've seen any award shows. I feel like I was really invested into it when I was a teen because I would sit back with my mother and we'd watch it. And now as a grown-up, I don't. You know where I catch it on? Twitter. I'm literally on my feed all the time just looking at it.
Because they're live tweeting the whole red carpet. They're live tweeting what people are saying. Maybe there's a quote that comes out of it. Maybe there's a, just like there was with the SAG Awards and the Golden Globes, there's a theme, pro something activist theme.
Absolutely. So that's where I catch it on. And I feel like I have more fun out of it because I see the funny humor that Twitter gives. I love Twitter, guys. It's so raw is the word that I'm looking for.
Are people going to stay? Are people going to wear black just like they did for the Golden Globes?
What do you think?
Well, in the SAG Awards, there was still a statement being made. I think a lot of people did wear black.
Yeah, I think so too.
If not, I actually didn't catch all of those moments, but I wonder if that is going to continue onto the trend, and then would it continue to the Oscars as well? I mean, that's such an amazing time to show your own expression, to pick your dress and your outfit. I wonder if the black kind of trend. You're in black today.
Oh yeah, I'm in black today.
It's so beautiful.
I love black.
And ever since I started doing it at the Golden Globes, it was kind of a cool thing to see in these award shows, right? I don't know if you guys out there are interested, or if you watch the award shows. We talked about this a little bit with the Golden Globes. I caught those. I love them so much. I miss the SAG Awards, but we did kind of look back at them and saw the tweets and saw what people were talking about. Kellick's saying.
What's Kellogg saying?
Still about relationships. Only award show I watch is the Oscars. It's like my Super Bowl.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can see that. And, I was a big fan of the Oscars growing up, too. Like Kevin, who I wasn't able to grab, guys. Maybe tomorrow we'll have him talk more Oscars. I grew up in, I guess, a family and around siblings who appreciated film and the arts. And we loved watching it. It was kind of like that feeling, right? It's a big moment, the big Sunday in February or March or whatever. And, we taped it on the red carpet. And you watch it back and you can't stay up so late, but we tried to stay up and see the Best Picture winner.
That's right.
Film is just so fun, even back then and now. I mean, it'll be cool to see what wins. And I do have a list. I literally wrote down the ones I need to see because these nominations are prompting me to be like, I must see these.
You need to sit back this weekend and just watch the movies. Exactly. You have time. You have time. I know. It's commitment,
There's
guys.
many hours.
There are many hours. Just grab yourself a bottle of wine and
just
kick back and enjoy a solid movie.
Fall asleep.
Oh gosh, I know that happens to me all the time.
These are actually the bigger contenders are pretty long this year. I remember people saying I, Tonya, 3 Billboards, be ready because they're longer. But I'm, I want to watch them.
Yeah, I think we're ready for it, and I'm excited to see what Kevin says.
I don't know if you went out to see any of the. Yeah, we'll see what Kevin says. Again, I don't think I can snag him today, but maybe
for sure tomorrow. And if anything, always on his Twitter, he is so open to what his thoughts are, which is awesome. Kevin McCarthy TV.
Yep.
He's always in the know. He's always tweeting I feel like the latest and most relevant when it comes to Hollywood, which is awesome. That's where I get my tea. Kevin McCarthy keeps me in the know.
Yeah, he does. He's really, really good.
Yeah.
And he was excited today because, like I mentioned, Dunkirk, or Christopher Nolan up for Best Director.
Christopher Nolan, yes.
For the first time in a long time, ever, he said. Christopher Nolan, of course, the amazing, he does really interesting, intrepid films, Inception, that type of thing.
Batman.
The Batmans, the Batman Begins.
Yes.
So good.
Yes, amazing.
And now he's up for Dunkirk, so.
And Dunkirk was amazing. I thought it was beautiful. I literally cried, guys. Christopher Nolan just has this magic touch he delivers to films. And when it's his work, too. You can decipher between his and perhaps somebody else's. So I love him, and I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
So
that's my vote for him. You guys were talking about movies earlier. But if there's anything on your list that's pressing that you have to see or anything that you want to comment about, please do let us know.
Yeah.
We're going to scoot into, I believe it's almost 1 o'clock here on the East Coast. We're going to scoot into a little digital meeting.
Got to keep in the know,
that we need
guys.
to go to, so I'm going to flash it over. I just see some people gathering. So you get a little inside look as to what's going on in the newsroom today. We're going to give you a little bum shot of the beautiful day that it is in D.C. today. It's 64 degrees.
In January. Crazy.
Insane. We all want to be outside. And this picture, you guys won't think otherwise. Look how gorgeous that is.
Oh.
Take a little moment. Reflect.
Let me turn away. I'm in here.
We'll come back with some other pressing news. I know, just briefly, there was a sort of minor school shooting incident in Benton, Kentucky. This morning, we were kind of following it, didn't have a lot of video coming in. There's a press conference, news are going to be explaining what happened there. Coming up, we're going to hope to try to bring you that live. I see it just coming down soon. And so we'll keep our eyes there, but we're going to go into a meeting and we'll come back in a little bit.
We will.
All right, thanks for joining us on our little social talk for the day. We'll be back.
It's always fun, guys.
Okay,
bye.
We'll be back soon. All right, guys, we are back. Thank you so much for tuning in. And sorry, we didn't mean for that to be so long of a break. We had a little digital meeting that we had to attend to. So tomorrow, join us for some more content. We will be back and up with lots of live video and interesting stuff for you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks, guys, for subscribing to our channel. We'll see you tomorrow at 11.